Hello everyone, and welcome back to the 12-in-1 Rogue analysis. You've already, or you should watch the draft portion first if you have not yet. But right now we're going to hop into the first game where I'm just going to talk about all the moves that we do, why we do them, which cards we're playing around, etc, etc. So yeah, let's enjoy and let's start the game here. I'll just quickly grab my notes here. Alright guys, so mulligan. Which cards are we going to keep? Which cards are we going to ditch? Let me just quickly pause over here, because it's one of those things that is easily overlooked. You have a lot of time to do it, and sometimes we're stuck into this pattern, right, where we have a certain amount of creatures that we'll keep automatically. I feel like everyone has this thing like, oh, you keep a spider tank, it's a great 3-drop. I think normally I would keep this spider tank, because as a rogue, daggering on turn 2 is not that bad. However, when we're looking at the deck list here, we can see that we have we have 2 backstabs, 2 Defias ringleaders, 3 auto barbers, so a bunch of good early game cards that we're aiming for. We also have a zombie chow and young priestess, so there's a lot of opportunity here to get onto the board really fast. So I feel like keeping a 3-drop might be slightly too slow. I'm gonna aim for either a zombie chow or a backstab or a barber. It's gonna be pretty tough not to find one of those. So we'll chip away everything here, and we'll go and look for one of those premium early game cards. Try to get us some advantage on the board, shall we now? Alright, there we go. A backstab and a Defias ringleader and a young priestess. Great. Turn 1, normally I would play this young priestess. I can see, we're debating a little bit whether we're going to play it or not. Now, we're going to end up not playing this young priestess, and this has a couple reasons. The first reason is that turn 3 we could play the young priestess and the ringleader, seeing as we don't have a turn 3 play in hand just yet. It serves as a good combo activator for the Defias ringleader. But the biggest reason here is that we have a backstab in the hand. Now, if we play the young priestess, we incentivize the opponent to coin out his hero power to kill our young priestess, which will make our turn 2 a dagger. Whereas if we don't play the young priestess, our opponent is incentivized to play a minion. If that minion is a 2 health minion, we can go ahead and backstab it and develop our ringleader. Now how's that for a turn instead of just daggering? So it has a lot of thought going into not playing this young priestess. If my hand didn't consist of these cards, I might have just played her here to bait out the coin. But because of the backstab here, I'd rather just have him walk into the backstab and play a minion rather than the hero power. So there we go. Just explaining here to the student why we're not going to play the young priestess. There we go. Pass. Because you see this is the spectator format. I do this a lot on my stream for those of you that have not seen it yet. And here we go, the opponent coins out a 2 health minion. Pretty risky against the rogue. We'll go ahead and show him why. This is a fairly straightforward turn. We backstab the panda, we play the ringleader, all is good. We're very far ahead on the board. Our opponent used this coin and we have initiative. That should almost never happen. When your opponent coins something out, he should have initiative. Initiative being that we can choose what we attack. We're the attacker, he's the defender. Okay, this is also a pretty interesting turn. We have the option to use our dagger and our 2-in-1 to kill it, and then go face with the remaining body here. The 2-in-2 will be a 2-in-1, or we could just trade both minions in and play a Crusader. Now, what reasoning do I use to say like which play is better than the other? I essentially look at both plays and see which play leaves me with the strongest possible board. If we trade both in and play a Scarlet Crusader, we'll have a 3-in-1 on the board. If we trade in the 2-in-1, use the dagger and the priestess, we'll have a 2-in-2, because the priestess will buff the 2-in-1. We'll have a 2-in-1, the priestess herself, and we'll have a dagger. That is 5 power to work with, whereas the Crusader is only 3. So, because of that, we'll opt to go for the dagger play here. It's an easy trick that you guys can do yourself whenever you're torn between two plays. Just, you know, play it out in your head and be like, okay, what does this play leave me with on the board, and what does that play leave me with on the board? And then, you know, it's not always as simple as just doing the math of, all right, how much power do I have left? Because now you see we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Because 2 of that power he's just gonna ping away. So it's a little bit of a false reasoning, but you know, we're still left with 3 power, and we tie up 2 of his mana, which is great. Because, okay, so this is something that I'm also quite big on, is a lot of people go like, oh, that's a pretty good move by the mage, you know, he uses hero power, he gained a card, great value play. However, what he could have also done is he could have played a spider tank, right? We're not 100% sure he has a spider tank in hand, but spider tank is generally the turn 3 that I aim to beat. It's one of the strongest turn 3s, and also one of the most common ones, because let's face it, if you see a spider tank in the draft, it's not very often you're gonna skip it. So a spider tank there would have wiped out my Young Priestess and my Defias Ringleader if I were to trade into it. That means that, yes, he gained a card by pinging, but he lost a bunch of tempo, because this 2 and 2 is now unharmed and ready to keep going. And you know that tempo gain, you know, that essentially me being on the board is gonna spiral out of control really fast. So if the opponent had a 3-drop, he should have played the 3-drop rather than utilizing the hero power for the extra card here. This is once again a fairly straightforward turn. We'll go ahead and play the Shredder here. The Twilight Drake is vulnerable to removal a lot more than the Shredder, you know, except Polymorph. Polymorph deals with them both the same way, but a Shredder can't really get fireballed. If he ends up frostbolting a Shredder, I'm okay with that. I still get a 2-drop out of the Shredder, that's all fine. Plus, if our opponent had played a Yeti here, we would have had a 4-4 on the table rather than a 4-3. Now, a 4-5, if we just use our Shredder and our hero power to kill the Yeti, we'd still get a 2-drop out of that. If we were to use the Drake and our hero power, we wouldn't have gotten anything. So those are 2 reasons why the Shredder was better there than playing the Drake. Alright, next turn here. Fairly straightforward mana-wise. We'll go ahead and play the Ogre Ninja. But how are we dealing with this Worgen? Once again, 2 options. We can use our hero power and our Defias Ringleader in that order, otherwise we'll take 1 extra face damage. Or we can use the Shredder. Here I think it's a lot better to use our face and the Defias Ringleader. It allows us to connect for 2 extra face damage, seeing as we wouldn't have used the dagger on his face. And it also preserves the Flame Strike resistant minion, seeing as if Flame Strikes the Shredder will just spawn a new minion. So one of those things I like to work on really early, you know, get a good Flame Strike resistant board. Okay, so our opponent pings our Shredder here. That could be a read for Blizzard. Oh, excuse me. That could also, still early here, that could also be a read that he just didn't have anything to do with his mana and he thought it was better to ping the minion rather than to ping the face. You know, it's pretty difficult to make that read. So our opponent played a secret. Usually a secret on an empty board there will be a mirror entity, so we're gonna go and check that with the Twilight Drake. Seeing as whatever our opponent copies, we're probably gonna have to kill that with the Shredder anyway. So then I'd rather develop a 4-4 rather than a 2-4 and a 2-1. You know, the 2-1 which he could just ping out. Also the Twilight Drake's gonna get smaller and smaller. So there we go. So let me touch on positioning for just a second. This positioning is both right and wrong, which sounds funny, right? It is right because the stealth minion is in the middle. Now, because this ogre is probably not going to remain stealthed, right? After we kill the Drake, we are going to deal 6 face damage. So if this was the board position last turn, it would be correct, because the ogre couldn't attack yet. And by getting the stealth minion in the middle, our opponent can't use Cone of Cold on our entire board. He'll have to choose where. Now, because this ogre is being revealed, the Shredder should have been in the middle. Why? If this Shredder had dropped a Flametongue Totem or a Dire Wolf, we would have had the buff on the Twilight Drake as well. Now, as we can see, that won't be the case. Can't remember what we get, but I remember that it didn't really matter. Ah, there we go, a Knife Juggler, premium creature, really good. We'll go ahead and deal 6 face damage here. We'll dagger up. Using the dagger here wouldn't have been terrible. I think the student ended the turn slightly premature, but I don't think it's too bad that we didn't hit his face. The only reason why I was considering hitting his face was because of potential 2-turn lethal. Okay, so we see a lot of options here. There is a cute play available. There's a play that I see here, that if we backstab our opponent's Lord of the Arena, it'll go to 3 HP. We do have a knife juggler on the table. If we play the mechanic, we'll get 2 juggles. If both juggles hit the Lord of the Arena, we can use our dagger to kill it rather than sacrificing our Twilight Drake. We also have the Scarlet Crusader as a backup. So we'll have 3 juggles, of which we need 2 to hit his guy. So I'd say, you know, that's 50-50, right? Whenever, you know, the upside is pretty high and the downside's pretty low, I'm okay making a small gamble. You might also say like, whoa, but Shady, aren't you playing way too hard into Flame Strike? I mean, you're about to add 2 additional creatures here. That's a little bit too much. I don't really agree with that, and I'll explain to you this at the end of the turn. It will be really easy to spot why we're not playing into Flame Strike here. Alright, so we're gonna go and observe what RNGesus decides here. Whether our juggles will be enough. Ooh, there's a rope. There we go. A little bit of pressure. So should have probably just played the Scarlet straight away, but that's okay. And there we see, will it hit? Will it hit? There we go, it hits. Okay, so why are we not playing into Flame Strike? Well, that's very easy. Look at his health here. He's down to 2 health. If he Flame Strikes, he's dead. Our Ogre will survive and just kill him. When he has Flame Strike at 7 mana, he can no longer use any other cards. Right, so he just loses here. We have more than lethal on the table. There we go. GG, well played. 1-0 Rogue. Okay guys, that's it for game 1. I'll see you back on game 2.